My name is Caroline. I used to sail competitively for 12 years before I signed up for my first marathon, the Bergen Marathon, and very unexpectedly won it, running a 3:05. And then I hired a coach. I worked very strategically and dedicated, and I ran a 2:46 marathon at the Florence Marathon that same year. Then, however, I suffered from 6 bone stress injuries, and it's just been a really, really hard time. And that's really why I started this channel. I want to share with all of you guys everything that I've learned from running marathons. I want to share how I went from barely running to running marathons and running marathons very competitively in a short amount of time. I have a free running guide that takes you from zero running to running consistently, and I also have 3 different marathon plans depending on your level. So I'll leave a link to all of this below. And if you like my content, if you want to see more of what I do, then click the subscribe button, like this video, and I appreciate you so much. Let's get into it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how stress affects running. I'm going to talk about my experience with stress and how it's held me back from achieving my desired results. And I'm also going to talk about what I do when stress occurs. I'm also going to talk about what I've changed in my life to limit stress. And lastly, I'm going to talk about just my mindset around stress. So if that's something you want to hear, stick around to the end. Right, so how stress affects running. So I'm going to talk about the physiological impacts of stress and the mental impacts of stress. So first, with the physiological impact of stress, there is a hormonal imbalance. So what happens when you're stressed is that your body is releasing a lot of cortisol, and a high level of cortisol will inhibit muscle growth and repair, and that's going to slow down recovery, and it's also going to increase the chances of getting injured, especially if you are in a training block where you're building a lot of mileage and you're not then recovering from that mileage. Chronic stress can also increase inflammation, which again will affect your recovery and your body's ability to build back stronger, and therefore increase the risk of injury. And then lastly, stress can also interfere with sleep, so both the quality and quantity of sleep. And we all know that sleep is really important for recovery as well, and for building back stronger after that workout. So if it's interfering with the sleep, it's also interfering with your ability to build back stronger and then your running performance. And on to the mental impacts of stress. So you probably all experience this. When you're really stressed, it can just be really hard to find that motivation to do that workout. That's that aspect of it. But then it can also be really mentally challenging to push through a hard workout. So that's why I've kind of had it both ways. I've had periods where I'm like really frustrated and I'll have like a really good workout just because I'm pouring all that like frustration out in my workout. But then I've also had periods where I have been building a lot of mileage and I'm really tired, and then when that stress comes on top of that, I'm just so tired that I lose my ability to focus and push through. Okay, so why does this even matter? I think for me, understanding how stress affects running, and in particular, as you can tell, as far as like physiologically and mentally, it's really affecting your ability to recover from the workout. And as we know, recovery is how we build back stronger. It's how we're getting those benefits from the workout. So if you're not recovering properly, you can't keep building mileage, you can't have more intense workouts, and in other words, it's also going to slow down your progression, or you'll end up getting injured. So really, this is why I am such a believer in understanding how that stress affects your body, so that you can be aware when you have more stressful times and then change up your workouts, your running, according to the stress. So what is my experience with stress? So I'd say I'm definitely a high achiever. I have, for as long as I can remember, wanted to do a really good job, like perform in every area of my life. When it was sailing, I wanted to be the best sailor. I wanted to do best in high school. I wanted to get into the best business school in Norway. I got into the best business school in Norway. I wanted to be part of all the groups. I wanted to perform the best in this case club. I wanted to work for a startup, despite that being very non-typical in between your bachelor's and master's. So I was basically competing for a job with a lot of people who had their master's degree. Then I wanted to get my MBA at a very young age. Now I want to go to the Olympics. I want to start my own business. So definitely a very high achiever. And I've definitely seen how stress is a byproduct of that, because it looks like you're managing all these things and that you just have a higher capacity. And yes, maybe I do have a higher capacity of getting things done, but it doesn't mean that having those extra things going on don't cause that stress, because they definitely do. And I have a lot of moments where I am just really frustrated with the amount of time things take, because for sure I'm someone who's very time optimistic. I've seen how that has impacted my running. If you've seen my story, you've seen how like all of my injuries have been related to a very stressful time in my life. So it wasn't that I was increasing my running load or my intensity a lot during those times, but it was that I was increasing simultaneously as I had more stress going on. So that's like really what I want this message in this video to be. It's that stress, as much as physiological stress of having that workout, that actual psychological stress, the hard things you're going through at work, the extra loads of having an MBA, getting into a new relationship, losing your job, losing a loved one, whatever it is you're going through, that impacts your body so much. And you and your coach should definitely consider that as a huge part of your training. So what I do when stress occurs, because let's face it, we live in a world where there is a lot of stress and nothing is, at the end of the day, completely controllable. There will be situations where even though you've planned as well as absolutely possible, you can't avoid it. So what I really do now is I understand how stress impacts my body. I understand how I can't just have this set plan and follow that set plan to the T. And that might look like one day I, quote unquote, had scheduled a long run that was going to be 25 kilometers. But if I've gone through a loss, if I've changed jobs, like if I'm just feeling really overwhelmed with my startup. So right now, for example, it's tax season. Like I'm still super stressed when it comes to taxes and business in the US. And I can find myself just like not relaxing as much, and I can definitely feel that increase in cortisol. And that means not being so strict about I have to run that 25 kilometer run. And like before, I would think I was being really tough who could physically get myself through that workout. But instead I'm like, okay, my body's going through more now due to that increased stress. What volume and what workout will it reap the most benefits from? And then I'll do that workout. And then sometimes I will do a little bit too much because I'm not quite aware of how much stress or the impact of that stress. That's what's really hard about stress, is you can't measure it in the same way as you can measure that run, right? You know exactly it took me X amount of time, it was X distance. The stress, it's like, how do you measure it? How do you know how much to kind of tailor your workouts depending on that stress? So that's why I try to think
better to be safe than sorry. And then it's not like one workout where you're doing too much is a problem. It's if you have multiple workouts where you're really pushing your body, that's when it potentially gets an injury. So don't stress if it's like one workout where you did too much. But then maybe, okay, the next day, can you have a rest day? What often happens when we're stressed is we also make poor decisions. So then it's important to express this to your partner, to your friend, have them help you be smarter about your workouts. And then maybe even do a little bit more cross training to be on the safe side, because again, I know I've just talked about this so much on my Instagram, but because running is an impact sport, we're loading our whole weight on our bodies. We're that much more prone to injury. So having biking or rowing, something else is going to be a lot easier for your body often to recover from, not cardiovascular wise necessarily, but yeah, especially if you're at that threshold as far as how much running your body can absorb. And with that, I mean, ask yourself, is this my usual mileage, or is this like my peak mileage? So if you're at that peak mileage, that's a sign to be extra cautious as far as how much running you're doing. But if you're like really not running that much, then that's not who I'm talking to. That's not when you need to necessarily do more cross training. So in summary, when the stress occurs, really try and be gentle on your body. Like, you're going through a lot. It's okay to just do less. It's going to do you better long term to listen to that. And there's always going to be a time where you can go back to pushing more, and then you're also going to reap those benefits of pushing more. So what have I changed in my life to reduce stress? So the biggest thing I've realized is that things take longer than I think. So with that, I've changed just being more realistic with how much I get done in a day, because before I would just have like way too many things to do, and then I got stressed when I didn't get all of it done. So I'd say that's probably the biggest. And then having a better plan, planning my week, planning my days, specifically planning the months, planning the year. Like, this relates to both like my professional career, but also to my running, knowing when is my base phase, when am I starting to add that intensity, more marathon specific training, when am I having those 5Ks, 5K races, 10K races, maybe a half marathon, knowing when it's my off season. That just like really helps me feel better. I'm sure that this is what most of you all do as well, plan. And then when things don't go as planned, it's like really understanding that you're trying your best and it's okay. Like, life happens, and you, at the end of the day, you can only do your best. So other than that, I'm really big on having a morning routine. So I've noticed how having just like a little ritual that puts me in a calm space every morning, that just helps me feel calm and less stressed throughout the day. So for me, my morning routine is I'll have coffee, I'll journal, I'll meditate, and I'll read. And then I'll do a little bit of work, and then I'll go for my run. So yeah, again, this just really helps me feel less stressed. And I used to like really rush in the morning because I wanted to sleep as long as possible. And now instead I'm like big on going to bed early and waking up early so that I have this like peace and slow start to the day, because I'm so focused on having less stress. So, but that also comes with having more time in a day to be less stressed, if that makes sense. So again, that comes back to not having too many things on my to-do list, because then I don't have time to take that extra time in the morning or at night to go to bed earlier. So lastly, I thought I would talk a little bit about my mindset when it relates to stress. So over the years, I've come to realize that my stress is a result of me really caring. I care about what other people think, even though I hate to admit that. I care about doing well. I care about getting a good running results. I care about being myself and creating content that other people enjoy here on YouTube. I care about being a good friend. Everything relating to stress is because I care. So it is a good thing. But then it's realizing that when I get stressed, I'm doing my best. And maybe it's because something unexpected came up. Maybe it's because I haven't done it before, so I'm unsure whether how it will unfold. Maybe it is because I just simply don't have enough time, that I'm being too optimistic with how much time things take. But also really believing that the people who know me as a person, they know that I'm trying my best, and they know I'm not being lazy, or I'm not trying to put the work on other people, and letting go of that fear of not being done at that rate I want to, if that makes sense. So I think what I'm trying to say is that instead of leaning into that stress and just being more productive to get things done, just sitting with myself and letting myself kind of not be perfect. So telling myself that I am enough, that I'm making progress, and at the end of the day, I'm just trying my best. That just really helps me. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you, especially all of you watching to the end. If you like my content, want to learn more about running, and just follow my journey as I'm working towards the Olympics, please like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.